Well, millions of viewers tuned in to catch the much-anit trailer for the next chapter in the Jurassic universe. And one burning question was on everyone's mind. What in the world is that thing? Today, we're diving deep into everything we've uncovered about the latest Jurassic World creature. Before we get started though, a quick heads up. We'll be breaking down the trailer, exploring behind-the-scenes details, and even touching on some rumored plot leaks we've found in the darkest corners of the internet, including what might be a full reveal of this new monster's design. Consider this your spoiler alert for this year's big blockbuster. You've been warned. In Jurassic World Rebirth, the story follows a stranded family and a team of mercenaries hired by a pharmaceutical company, both ending up on a mysterious island with a troubling present and a shadowy past. Dinosaurs, set loose into the world in the previous films, have made places like this their home, and it turns out InGen was running some of its earliest experiments here decades ago. But from the pack-hunting Spinosaurus to the massive, kaiju-like Titanosaurus, nothing we've seen before is as terrifying as this new creature. Now here's an example of how the D-Rex might look, standing potentially over 25 feet tall and weighing tens of thousands of pounds. This nightmarish beast doesn't have an official name yet, but as a nod to a forgotten monster from the 90s, we're calling it the D-Rex for now. Even with all the bizarre creatures this franchise has thrown at us, nothing compares to this. A deformed mutant with multiple arms, knuckle-walking fists armed with huge claws, and a strange, bulbous forehead that could suggest anything from echolocation abilities like a beluga whale to a malformed skull, like something you'd see in embryonic development gone wrong. For this part of the video, let's explore the idea that this wasn't a planned design. After all, 6 limbs, a body that looks like a T-Rex and a rancor got tossed into a blender, and massive knuckle-walking fists aren't exactly features you'd find in the dinosaur fossil record. Based on scattered rumors and alleged plot details, this could be one of InGen's earliest genetic creations, dating back to the 1980s, when genomes were sequenced and sent off for production at Site B. This theory lines up with the fact that Rexy, one of the first dinosaurs InGen created, was born in the late 80s, according to viral marketing. If InGen did make this creature, this twisted abomination would likely be older, built with outdated technology. That means it could be pushing 50 years old if it was created in the mid to late 70s, or still well past a real T-Rex's life expectancy of around 30 years if it was made in the early 80s. With age comes older tech, and that might explain why it looks the way it does. Genetic technology in the 80s was far more primitive than what we saw in the early 90s, let alone the advanced computers of the 2010s. Back then they didn't have things like the CM5 supercomputers used on Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna. Remember the line, "Hello John, hello John." Thinking machine supercomputers and gene sequencers break down the strand in minutes. We use the complete DNA of a frog to fill in the holes and complete the code. That bit from Hammond's presentation might actually be plot relevant. Tech like that was crucial for making incomplete DNA work, either by repairing it or filling gaps with frog DNA correctly. But it's easy to mess up, which is why we don't see much of this in the real world. If they used less advanced tech to create this mutant, that could explain its bizarre appearance. To be clear, the InGen geneticist behind this D-Rex didn't intend for it to look like this. It was likely a failed attempt at creating a giant theropod. No amount of proper hybridization or splicing should result in multiple limbs. Alright, let's dive into some genetics for a moment, so buckle up and pay attention. Understanding this will help you appreciate this mutant Rex a bit more, and might even lead to another wild theory about why this creature exists. Hox genes are groups of genes that control an animal's basic body plan. Mutations can alter limb shape and size, that's how evolution works, but these genes are hardwired to keep the body layout consistent. That's why tetrapods, like us and all other land vertebrates, have never had limbs growing out of our heads, arms sprouting from our legs, or more than 4 limbs in 300 million years. In short, gene splicing shouldn't cause this. So, what went wrong? We can point to a rare mutation called polymelia, which affects Hox genes. It happens when there's an error in the DNA, causing Hox genes to duplicate or change, leading to issues with the animal's body structure. Here, the geneticists likely messed up the DNA rebuilding process, either using outdated computers or not being careful enough to fill the gaps. The result? A botched attempt at creating the franchise's iconic star. Let's take a closer look at this mutant Rex. Notice how it's being called a mutant all over the internet. Not a hybrid, not a mix, but a mutant. That term carries different implications. Typically, when an animal is mutated, extra limbs or even heads might not be perfectly symmetrical. Take Stumpy, the four-legged duck, born with its normal legs plus 2 extra asymmetrical ones, or Octo-goat, born on a Croatian farm with 8 limbs total. Both examples of mutations during embryonic development. Our mutant Rex might have gone through something similar, with 2 large limbs, strong enough for knuckle walking, plus 2 smaller limbs with 2 digits, like a real T-Rex. But those elongated front limbs? Not something you'd see in a T-Rex. So what happened? Remember, in Jurassic Park they mentioned using frog DNA to fill gaps in the genetic code. It's possible that frog DNA could explain the D-Rex's unsettling look. Frogs famously undergo metamorphosis, with tadpoles growing limbs as their tails shrink after birth. This could explain why things went haywire during the D-Rex's embryonic stage. As of now, there's no official reveal of this creature's full design. However, it seems to have bilateral symmetry, meaning both sides are the same, which is actually rare for a mutated animal. That said, there's still a chance its limbs are slightly asymmetrical, leading to a creature in constant discomfort, living a painful existence. In the trailer we see shots of Duncan, one of the heroes, luring it with a flare, which supports the idea that this was an early attempt at making a TR-Rex, since both this and Rexy are drawn to flares. You can see TR-Rex features in its face, a wide jaw similar to TR-Rex mandibles, though they might not work at full capacity. Still, expect a bite force that could snap a person in half, if it can even reach them. Its build oddly resembles a T-Rex, but if an animal this tall tried to lower its jaws to the ground to grab a human, it would need to spread its front limbs awkwardly to bring its head down. That's inefficient for combat, suggesting this mutation forces it to rely on its front limbs as its main weapon. Those 2-digit hands could be used for striking or slashing, with its jaws only used up close if necessary. Its size and reach are likely the only reasons it would be a formidable fighter. Speaking of size, we need to figure out why this creature is so massive despite its base genome being a T-Rex. Remember what we learned about Hox genes? Our theory is that because these genes were likely corrupted during the embryonic stage, the affected Hox gene cluster might influence growth genes, not only adding extra limbs but also increasing their size. The D-Rex's height comes mostly from its elongated limbs. During its embryonic stage, Hox genes normally control the number and length of limbs, but here they led to polymorphism. The mass of its body, torso, and head is still similar to a typical Jurassic Park T-Rex. It's the limbs that were affected. But there's more. Hox mutations can also lead to neotenic traits, where juvenile features are retained into adulthood. This could explain why the D-Rex has a bulbous head and a strange natal form on its upper torso. All these mutations combined result in a failed attempt at making a T-Rex, but one that's functional enough to have survived for decades. There's a scene in a working facility with a T-Rex, likely a flashback to when the lab was operational. Notice the size difference between the two, suggesting this one was an infant. More interestingly, this younger creature seems to take its time attacking, hinting at a shrewd, calculated nature, not rushing for an easy meal but observing and learning about its world as it grew. What does this mean for the older, mature mutant Rex? Perhaps an even more terrifying, intelligent, and possibly malevolent monster. There's another angle to consider, based on hints in the trailer. Earlier we assumed these lab scenes were InGens, but what if they belong to a new company in the franchise like Parker Genix? This could mean the mutant isn't that old. This theory holds water, as some of the tech in these clips looks more 2010s than 1980s. Company takeovers of islands, like Mantacorp in Camp Cretaceous or Masrani on Isla Nublar, show this has happened before. The key takeaway is this: if this mutant was created recently, was it really an experiment gone wrong? We know Hox genes control how traits develop, and, believe it or not, they've been tampered with before to create custom animal augmentations. Just recently, we learned that an Argentinian biotech company, Chiron, created a genetically modified horse designed to run faster. Its entire genome was altered before gestation, targeting genes for muscle development to boost speed, making it faster than its base genome from champion polo horses. This tech has been researched for years. Back to the Jurassic universe. Using this logic, it's possible something similar happened here. By targeting specific genes related to limbs, bone length, and muscle growth, Parker Genix might have known exactly what they were doing. This would require modern tech, further suggesting this creature was made by Parker Genix. The whole mission to return to the island and retrieve 3 large animals could be a cover-up to reclaim a valuable genetically altered asset, one that wrecked this lab long ago but is now being sought by its creators.